Welcome to the Geek101 podcast, episode 219, Ready to Reboot. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. I'm Ariel Rada.
And I'm Andy Bowman.
And today we're going to look at reboots. We're going to look at things that are actually officially being rebooted, things that maybe should be rebooted, and maybe some things that shouldn't be rebooted. Things that definitely shouldn't be rebooted. But before that, we do have news, and this is a very Andy news week. Andy, why don't you give us the news?
All right. First of all, Gary Larson's The Far Side is coming back in some form or another. Ariel, did you ever read The Far Side?
I have not read The Far Side, no.
Okay. Do you know what The Far Side is?
I do not. I thought you were talking
Okay.
about Farscape at first, and I was like, wait, this is not what it is.
No. The Far Side, I mean, if you just Google it, it's a bunch of single panel comics. Like, you're probably very familiar with it as soon as you see it.
Yeah. As I'm looking at it now, looking it up, yes, I know what it is.
Right. For me personally, this is almost as big of a news as like Calvin and Hobbes coming back.
Right. It's certainly as recognizable to adults, probably not the kids, but you just don't know the name.
Right. I just think that that's great and have a lot of fond memories. And it's great that a guy who can deliver a joke in a single panel might be making comeback in some way. If you go to farsidecomic.com, they basically say it's coming. Something is coming and being rebooted. So that's awesome to me.
Yeah, awesome.
I don't think it's for anyone else. I hope a bunch of our fans are familiar with it. Next up, the Wheel of Time has started filming, so it looks like it's actually going to happen. That's really all I have to say about it. It's filming. That's great.
Yeah, they had an impressive casting news drop, and I mean impressive in terms of quantity. Not that they aren't quality actors, I just don't know who most of them are. So we should be expecting this this Wheel of Time. Was it a series?
Yes.
Yes, we should expect this series sometime relatively soon. And perhaps we cannot say the same for Lin-Manuel Miranda's King Killer Chronicles, based off of the books by Patrick Rothfuss. Andy, why don't you tell us about that?
All we know now, it was originally being made for Showtime. Showtime has now passed on it, so it is being shopped around. This is interesting to me. One, because this is actually one of the first news bits I covered on our review of Thor Ragnarok, the first episode I was a guest on. And I really enjoy the book, The Name of the Wind. I don't think it needs to be on Showtime, so this makes sense. It's a little weird, though. Lin-Manuel is a huge name. I wonder why they passed on it.
Yeah, that is interesting. I've never read The Name of the Wind. I don't think I will, because from my understanding the books are not complete.
Yeah, the third one still has no release date, and the second one came out in 2011.
Yeah, so, I'm not going to pick up on a story that may or may not end at this point. So, but Lin-Manuel, anything he does, I will definitely check out or have some passing interest in the very least. Of my understanding, there is like a bard quality to the books, right?
Yes, absolutely. The main character, Quoth, who is really, really talented at being a musician and uses music and along with magic and to do some very fantastical feats in this world. Lin-Manuel creating the music, it's such a great idea. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes, but I really don't know how you would adapt the King Killer Chronicles, so maybe it's for the better that it never gets adapted.
Right. Next up, we did get a full cast reveal of James Gunn's, I think the official title is The Suicide Squad.
Right, just like The Fast and the Furious.
Right. Two Suicide, Two Squad is the official title for this one. a lot of people are like incredibly hyped. First of all, the first one is garbage. I'm not like a Guardians truther. And like, guys, it's just a poster with a bunch of names. Like I never like I don't understand. Like Mike is even like was way worse on this. So like when was a Variety or who Entertainment Today would like have like magazine covers with like actors and pictures, like set pictures, but like you just like posted a bunch of names. Some interesting ones here. We know John Cena's in it. Joel Kinnaman is back. Nathan Fillion is here. Pete Davidson, who is known for being Ariana Grande's ex. Michael Rooker, who is coming from the Marvel side to the DC side. Peter Capaldi is the name here that I was most interested in. Best known for playing the 12th Doctor in the Doctor Who series. Your thoughts, Andy?
Okay. I think to see why people are getting hyped about this, you have to look at a few things. One, who is not on this list? If you notice, Will Smith, not on this list. And a few other characters like Jared Leto, that name is also not on this list.
Yeah, like, and I'm glad Leto's not there. The Idris Elba thing, we're still not certain as to what role he's going to play. There were rumors of a Deadshot recast where he's replacing Will Smith. There's rumors of a Deathstroke recast where he's replacing Joe Manganiello. Nobody knows. Until this movie comes out and I've seen it, like I really don't care. I'm like, the more I learn and the more I watch of James Gunn, like the less I'm in on him, because like his freshness isn't there anymore. Does that make sense?
Right. I can understand that. Also, James Gunn did tweet this out with the line, or the line, "Don't get too attached."
That,
I think,
right. Yeah, that I like.
Yeah. Because one of the things that's really annoying about the first Suicide Squad is you immediately know the one member who's going to die.
Yeah. Yeah, and I hope like you're suggesting, with him saying that, a lot of these names are just not gonna survive the end of the film, and I like that, because the first movie, you had that ridiculous guy Slipknot, as the only. It's just so ridiculous. It's just so stupid. He was the only guy on the Suicide Squad who ended up dying, which is sort of antithetical. You know, DC was pretty antithetical. That Man of Steel was pretty antithetical. You know, things like that. You know,
right? Plus, I mean, Taika Waititi on the list is kind of cool.
Yeah, he's the voice. We don't know of what though.
Right, but like David Dastmalchian, who people will remember as being the Baba Yaga from Ant-Man and the Wasp. He's playing Polka Dot Man, and I just kind of love that. I love that we're going into these D-villain territories.
Yeah, and this is the movie to do it. And I think that this movie could end up being somewhere like a half grade below the first Guardians, but still having that like real D-level charm that even Guardians didn't have. Because I guess besides like Rocket and Groot, Star-Lord, Drax, and Gamora were still like C-list and not D-list. Like Polka Dot Man, King Shark, guys like that. Those are like D-list. Like, who the F are these guys? I like that. You know, just introduce them, give them a good moment, and kill them. Like, that's the whole point of this movie.
Yeah, and something tells me like Nathan Fillion and Michael Rooker, they're here because they're friends with James Gunn. They're not going to be standing around for very long.
Yeah, even his brother Sean Gunn, who knows like what role he'll play in this. So that's a fun. It's gonna be a fun little thing there. That's the part that excites me about this, the kind of change in concept. But if tonally it's like Guardians again, like you've got to give me something different. Maybe if it's like a mix of Guardians, the original Suicide Squad, or what we thought was going to be Suicide Squad, and Deadpool, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe. Well, it could. I'll watch it. It's not one of those where I have no interest, but I'm not super interested in a way that a lot of like Super Guardian fans are.
Right. I'll also say it'd be kind of funny to like do the the roster thing again, and just not have one of the characters on that roster list, which is what really gave Slipknot away, and then just let that character live through the entire thing.
Yeah, something like that, where it's like it's all these characters that we kind of know, and then like Slipknot. But in this one, if you're introducing Polka Dot Man and Slipknot and somebody else, you kill one of them, you can kill all of them, you kill none of them, and it would be like a much fresher take than, hey, here's this idiot guy who's played by a no-name actor, and he's dead. But if you killed all of them, it might, jokingly, it might feel a little bit like Deadpool 2, which played that joke incredibly well. It was awesome.
Right. I think we can all agree the only one who's 100% safe is Margot Robbie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right. I got to agree with you there. She's the only one 100% safe. Yeah, there's nobody else in that list, right? Do we know if Captain Boomerang is coming back? I think
Jai Courtney and Joel Kinnaman are both on this list.
Okay. I think Joel Kinnaman's character is pretty safe. Because Rick Flag just doesn't, he's just, is that his name? Gosh, a generic soldier name. He's pretty safe. He might be safe there. But let's get into the news. Speaking of reboots, Suicide Squad is a reboot.
Yes, it is.
Jeez, we're on brand today, Andy. There are two big pieces of reboot news. One of them is just an idiotic tweet that Variety has posted. It's not Variety's fault that it's idiotic. The concept is idiotic. Sony Pictures Entertainment CEO Tony Vinciquerra says that, quote, very famous people whose names I won't use, end quote, want to redo or reboot Norman Lear's The Princess Bride. Okay. The Princess Bride is probably, it's definitely a top 5 movie for me of all time. It's probably the most beloved movie on my list, besides maybe the first Star Wars. One, why would you reboot this? It's stupid. It's a perfect movie. Don't touch it. Everybody on the internet says don't touch it. Two, who in the world is Norman Lear? Do you know who this is, Andy?
Absolutely.
What has he done? What is his...
Norman Lear, you might know him from being the creator of All in the Family.
Nope.
Being the creator of The Jeffersons, Good Times, Sanford and Sons.
Okay. So he was like the Michael Schur of his time.
Yes, but the thing is he's still active. Like what is that the Netflix the Netflix series with the Mexican family.
Oh, One Day at a Time.
Yeah. That was a remake of a One Day at a Time, which was his deal.
Okay.
So here's the thing about him. His series actually did something interesting by embracing and taking on cultural issues, right? Mm-hmm. All in the Family made Archie Bunker the idiot. Sanford and Son and the Jeffersons are all about like black problems and
right.
So it's a big deal. But the other thing is, this dude is still alive and kicking, and his new deal with Sony would basically, if he lives to see the end of it, he will be over 100 years old.
Okay. Great man. Well developed, well standing in the industry. Okay. Here's the issue with the tweet. He should not be associated in terms of claiming The Princess Bride as his movie. I'm reading here he helped fund it because he helped support Rob Reiner in funding the movie. Great. But when you're talking about The Princess Bride, you would go, oh, it's William Goldman's The Princess Bride. And then you'd go Rob Reiner. And then you'd probably go Mandy Patinkin. And this is I said this whole spiel to Brian. And then you'd go Andre the Giant. And then you associate like Sean Wallace, Carrie Ells, Fred Savage, Robin Wright, Billy Crystal, Peter Falk, who plays the grandfather, Chris Sarandon, who plays the Humperdinck. There's a Christopher Guest who plays I think it was the six finger. Is that him, the six-fingered man? Yes, it's him. The point is, there's all these people associated with The Princess Bride, and Norman Lear does not come up to it. I'm looking at here on the Princess Bride Wikipedia page. His name's not even listed in the like producer credit. Like there's a note. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's I do not know why. Like I cannot fathom why this was a thing.
Why it was phrased this way. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't make any sense to me. But just Norman Lear, Mel Brooks, and Carl Reiner are all of this specific old Hollywood, still alive and still doing things. So it's interesting, but yeah, it was a stupid tweet. Stupid tweet.
It was a stupid quote, stupid tweet, and no offense towards Norman Lear. He's had a great career, an awesome career where he pushed real life issues and social, diversity and stuff like that. But man, what a dumb thing to say. And also, don't reboot The Princess Bride. It's really okay to just have things.
Right. Don't reboot perfect things. Reboot things that need to be reboot because they didn't fit at that time.
Yes. Reboot good concepts but bad executions. That's what you need to reboot. But speaking of reboots, we have one more piece of news before we get into our main topic. NBC has announced their own streaming service titled Peacock. So the Peacock is going to be their own network streaming service, and they're actually going to be like big players. So I'm reading here, Parks and Rec is going to be taken off Netflix. At some point, you think Friends will be taken off of wherever it is and go to NBC's own streaming service. But the real news here is that they're going to reboot. Let's see, what did they say? They're going to reboot Saved by the Bell. Fine, whatever. They're also going to reboot Battlestar Galactica. Andy, are you a Battlestar Galactica fan?
I have seen the entirety of the new Battlestar Galactica series.
Okay.
I would say I'm a fan of 85% of it.
Oh, I've heard the ending has mixed reviews, at the very least.
Yes. And I fall on very negatively on the ending.
Okay. That's why I haven't watched it. By the time I was privy to the concept or to how good it was, it had already ended to mixed reviews. I don't know if Battlestar Galactica. We'll talk about this in our main topic. But
yes,
it's interesting. Go on.
I think it should be rebooted.
Okay.
I'll put it that way.
Okay. Well, we'll delve into that a little deeper. But Battlestar Galactica it'll be a reboot of a reboot at this point, or a reboot. Yeah, a reboot of a reboot, because the original Battlestar Galactica was an old TV show, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It was from the 80s, like 79, 80, and it was not good.
Okay, but that's what you reboot, right? You reboot things from the past that aren't really good, and turn it into something high quality. And I, I don't know if they should want to do it again. But before we get into our main topic, Andy, why don't you fill us in onto some good news that we had recently?
All right. Well, one, we got an iTunes review from iTunes user PatRat90, who his review reads as follows. Always heard about Ariel and mad about movies. Finally gave this a listen, and glad I did. Funny, smart, and about topics I love hearing about. Glad I finally gave it a chance.
Thank you, Pat
Thank
Rat.
you, Pat Rat.
Yeah. So for those of you who just listen to our show and do not listen to our godparent show, Mad About Movies, I am their resident person of color and resident geek. And so I will go on there for things, for example, like Crazy Rich Asians or The Farewell, or things like, a Marvel movie or Hellboy, that terrible movie. I think I spoke to them about that. But yeah, good to see that. I did? Yeah. I do a lot of podcasts, Andy. It's too much at this point. Glad to see we have another transplant from Mad About Movies.
Right. So first things first, I want to do some kind of listener drive, and because clearly Pat Rat hasn't caught up yet, and he hasn't gotten to any episodes where I'm a host, so he's clearly talking about the ones with Ariel and Mike. We are currently at 74 iTunes ratings, and my personal goal is to push for 100 ratings, hopefully all 5 stars, by the end of the year. And if we can get there, I'm going to do something big. I'm going to make Ariel do something big and probably painful for his soul. Don't know what, but I do know people love listening to people in pain, especially if it's something like watching.
Don't say it.
David Ayer's Suicide Squad.
I thought you were gonna say Batman v Superman, but that's almost as bad.
I mean, we might have to do a back-to-back. Like, if we get, it's a big deal. We are, adding a third of our total reviews. So, big push. Come on, guys, help us out here. Go on iTunes.com, look us up, give us 5 stars. I know not everyone listens to iTunes. I actually used Zune for the longest time to listen to podcasts. Yeah.
I mean, it's, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Right. I still don't own any Apple products, so I had to create an Apple ID, sign in, and rate and review podcasts. It really helps them out because iTunes is by far where a lot of people download and listen to podcasts. It's how they find new podcasts. So please, guys, please go on there, slap that review on, write it up. We will read any written reviews. Otherwise, just give us a ratings. It really makes our day. It makes my day to know that I'm not completely ruining this show that I used to love so much. So please do that. Next piece of news. I am in the process of creating a top 10 scary movie list, and I want to create the official Geek101 top 10 scary movie list. So, here's the deal. The deadline for this is October 15th. Some way, contact us. You can tweet at us. You can go online and Facebook message us. You can email us. You can find where Mike's comic book shop is. Mail a certified letter to Mike's comic book shop, which is at Manifest Comics. I don't care how you do it. Let us know your top 10 scary movies. I'm going to add up all the points and create our official Geek 101 top 10 scary movie list. And if this is a success, we will be making more official Geek 101 movie lists, TV show lists, comic book lists, whatever it is that you want. But the deadline here is October 15th. You can email us at geek101pod@gmail.com. Now, it is not geek101podcast@gmail.com.
Because somebody had that. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? Email geek101podcast@gmail.com and tell them to give us the email address.
Yeah, tell them.
All right. So geek101pod@gmail.com. Just give us your top 10 scary movies. Now, these don't have to be movies that are known as being scary. They could just be the ones that are scary to you, or the ones that you loved, or whatever it is. Scary movies aren't for everybody. I certainly know I don't always enjoy them, and I just want to start some some interacting with you guys, getting some feedbacks on how I can be better, and kind of make this more of a community.
Sure, yeah. And for a funny thing, somebody asked me what like the scariest book I had ever read was, and I told them it was George Orwell's 1984. For entirely different reasons than they probably thought, and they probably still think I'm a weirdo, but that is a frightening book. But if you have movies that you feel should be on your top 10 scary movie list, please feel free to message us. We will continue to tweet and post on Facebook and even Instagram the prompts for it, so you'll be reminded. We'll also put it on Patreon. And I think when we're scoring, Andy, when we're providing a point system, we'll figure out what that point system is. We should heavily weigh both yours and my list. If Mike wants to participate, I don't think he quite likes scary movies. We will heavily weigh his list just as much as yours and mine. We will add weight to the Patreon, and of course, we will make the lowest tier just the listener. So, if you're a Patreon, or if you're a co-host or former co-host, we will add more weight to your entry. I would suggest that our friend from the Godfather podcast, Mad About Movies, Brian Gill, do it, but he doesn't watch scary movies, so he will not have too much to say in regards to this topic.
Hey man, Killer Crowns from Outer Space is gonna be pretty high up on my list, so just saying. Also with that, go to our Patreon, patreon.com/geek101podcast, and give us $1 every month. You get some exclusive episodes. You get the ability to interact with us when we ask questions and poll. Make it a little bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into our main topic today. We're ready to reboot. We're going to talk about what a reboot entails and look at different properties to see how they were either rebooted or how a property could look and whether or not it deserves a reboot, perhaps. Andy, why don't you explain to the listener that there are actually different kinds of reboots?
Okay, so I did some thinking, and I think I came up with 3 general kinds of reboots, okay? You have your reboots to the story. This is your Brightburn, right? Brightburn was a middling horror movie. You can read my review of it on the website, geek101podcast.com. And it basically takes the same story beats and same story structure of Superman, but changes it a little bit. This is the same thing with Star Wars: A New Hope, which was a weird reboot of Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress. You have reboots to the context, okay? Now, context comes in 2 different forms here. This is the academic and me talking, so let me ramble a little bit. All right, you have the journalistic context, which is the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And you also have the discrete context, which is about the task, the social properties, or the physical properties within it. And good examples of this, I think, are Sherlock, or BBC's Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman, which updates the context, but keeps the characters the same. The characters, however, are now informed by this new context. And you have a lot of Shakespeare stuff, right? Anytime you can think at all about Shakespeare being updated, or how The Lion King is really just Hamlet, or blah, 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 all that stuff. And you also have remixing, which is rebooting the tone. This is your Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and funnily enough, the Banana Splits movie. Now, Ariel, are you familiar with what the Banana Splits are?
Yes, the Banana Splits are like a Chuck E. Cheese-esque band of people in animal costumes.
Right, and have you heard of the Banana Splits movie?
No, I have not.
Okay, this is real. It just came out. Some enterprising person bought the rights to the Banana Splits and turned it into a horror slasher movie.
This is amazing.
Yes. Ariel, I would, maybe for the Patreons we can watch this and discuss.
Sure, yeah, that's a good Patreon thing where it's like a special thing. Like, why are we watching this? Interesting. So yes, you've provided 3 really interesting ways to reboot something. You have a reimagining, where a Superman story, instead of one of hope and adventure and heroism, is one of horror and violence. You have a retelling, right, where Sherlock Holmes is no longer in Victorian era England. He's in the modern day, solving the same mysteries, but in a different context, like you said. And you have a remix where Sabrina the Teenage Witch is the same person with the same aunts. But
it's ants.
Yeah, sure. But tonally, it's entirely different to how you would imagine. So from a comedy to this weird horror dramedy type thing, or Banana Splits, which is a comical musical, TV show endeavor, to a weird horror indie film. There are different ways, different contexts. And that's why I decided to choose the quote in the beginning for The Princess Bride, where, I want to, for example, Universal's reboot of The Mummy, it was just a reboot in name. It was a complete, I guess, reimagining. That was like the laziest reboot ever. But something like the Mission Impossible movies is a retelling, not a retelling, a reimagining of those, of that old TV show into a modern day and kind of changing it. And that has evolved since then. But yeah, we're going to look at different things to reboot here. So let's talk about Battlestar Galactica, Andy. What kind of reboot do you think that deserves? Because you've already said you think it is ripe for rebooting. What kind of reboot do you think that should have or could have?
Okay, I think it should have a reimagining. Now, this is part of the interesting thing. Are you rebooting the original, or are you rebooting the early aughts version?
I'm almost certain they'll reboot the early aughts version. Okay.
Now, one thing about the early aughts version is it is very much informed on the political context of our country at the time. And this is why I think doing a slight reimagining is appropriate, because I would hate to lose the political weight that we're going to just call the early aughts one the original. I would hate to lose that kind of weight that it had. And as a society today, we are informed very differently on our political world, in our social world. So maybe this is more of a retelling, right? I want to update. I want to update the science fiction-esque storytelling with what we have today.
Yeah, so this is what you are suggesting is what George Lucas tried to do in his Phantom Menace prequel endeavor experiment. He tried to imbue the politics of the modern day of 1999 and the early 2000s into the Star Wars universe.
Ariel.
Yeah. Go.
The prequels are, we do have a special word for that. It's fan fiction.
Sure. No, see, fan fiction is what The Cursed Child is. I don't know if you've read it. The Cursed Child is like the worst sequel to a popular thing I've ever seen in my life. And that includes Suicide Squad, Batman v Superman, all that jazz. It's the worst by far. The prequels aren't, it's not the ideas in the prequels, it's the execution. And I think fan fiction is the ideas, right? So there's some great fan fiction out there. I think fan fiction is like really out there ideas based off of an existing properties. But basically George Lucas tried to put so much political subtext rather in these movies, and as a result, like that first movie is just a narrative mess. But like the original trilogy is like, hey, there's the imperialists and there's the rebels, and it was I just read an article here that was just like, yeah, George Lucas wanted to, we were just removed from Vietnam, and like the Empire's America and Britain, and the rebels are the Viet Cong and the people trying to survive as the Empire is trying to crush them. And it's like, it was just such simpler times. But for Battlestar, you would need very, very smart people to read today's political climate and adapt it in a way that is accessible to the modern audience while not being narratively and visually boring. It's a tall ask.
And I will say that the way that the original series ended, this could actually be a sequel.
Okay, I do like that idea. I like that idea better than a reboot, I think, or a reimagining, whatever. In terms of The Princess Bride, Carrie Ells just tweeted something amazing 10 minutes ago. He said, there's a shortage of perfect movies in this world, and it would be a pity to damage this one. So you Princess Bride fans out there, no.
Wait a minute. Ariel?
Yeah.
You said Carrie Ells? Do you mean the guy from Saw?
No, I mean the guy from Psych who plays Pierre Despero.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Speaking of which, I got to get this out of the way, because Psych has one of the best instances of rebooting ever. They have a season 8 episode of Psych that is a reboot of one of the first season episodes.
I haven't gotten there yet. I know it happens. I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. Psych is a beautiful show, people. Watch it if you can. It's great.
Yeah, so let's get back into our reboot talk. What are some things, what's a property that you feel is ripe for a reboot today?
Okay, I know this has been in the talks, this is kind of cheating, but I think Buffy and Angel are totally in line for a reboot right now.
Yeah, that one's tough because it's so beloved, but the originalists are so dated. And so you can see why people kind of want to remake it, right?
Yeah, the thing is like, there are a few episodes of Buffy and a few episodes of Angel that I think rank among the top episodes of all television.
Yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
I mean, there are some amazing ones that are to the level of like Doctor Who's The Weeping Angel. Don't Blink.
Andy,
it's ones
out,
that you can sit
so
anyone down, you can show it to them, and they will enjoy it, and they'll be hooked. Buffy suffers very much from being very 90s, and I think that's why a reboot of Buffy would be perfect. Buffy sometimes has a very 90s sense of female empowerment that feels a little old today, and you could definitely upgrade it and adjust it with Buffy being, just a modern, present day female superhero. Angel's interesting because Angel is an offshoot of Buffy, and I actually started thinking like, well, could you reboot a spin-off without rebooting the thing it spun off from?
I think you have a good writer, then absolutely, and But the problem is that I truly believe that there is a massive shortage of those in Hollywood, and that most Hollywood writers are just people who have friends that are producers. And that's why most things we watch, most things that come out are bad. Like, they're actively poorly written, nonsensical things. It's because the Hollywood industry is still filled with people who are just there to give jobs to their friends. Conceptually, I don't know. I don't know if like Angel is all that interesting without Buffy.
Right. God. People, if you haven't watched Buffy, the first season is a slog. It's a campy slog, but it gets so good, so incredibly good, and well thought out, and just it's amongst my favorite TV series of all time.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think the time factor is definitely there. It's far enough removed. Something like it really frustrated me when they rebooted Amazing Spider-Man so shortly after Spider-Man 3. It was just like, man, it's been like, and then Homecoming so shortly after Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's just like, hey, we still have the things that we enjoyed so much just a few short years ago. Let's give things time and tell new stories. I think Buffy is far enough removed. I think another property you have on this list, which is one of my favorite shows ever, is Supernatural. Supernatural's not even done yet.
Doesn't matter. Reboot it.
I conceptually, I really enjoy Supernatural, and I would really like to see more stories. The problem is, like, you know what? It has been 15 years since it started. You can retell that beginning of that story, or you can reset the world and tell an entirely different story in the world. I like that. Like a remix.
Yeah, just imagine Supernatural's final season is this season. Just imagine that the big ending thing is them resetting the world completely, and the Winchesters are not in it.
Oh yeah, something like that. Where the problem with one of the problems with Supernatural is that it kind of it's getting crushed by its own weight, and therefore, like, so many things just are hard for me to suspend my disbelief on. They keep bringing people back, and people are dying, and they're ignoring all these things. So, like, well, you know what? That happens when you go for 15 years. And at a certain point, you just kind of there along for the ride with the boys, with the Winchesters. But yeah, that'd be interesting. I do like the world that's set up. I do like a lot. Like, I love the rules, and I loved when the rules applied. But at 15 years later, the rules don't apply anymore, and so I am uninterested in that. I would love to have this world where the rules apply again. So that I would like some remix of it.
Oh, Ariel.
Yeah.
I just realized that Batman the Brave and the Bold is a tonal reboot of Batman the Animated Series.
Is it? I thought it was more like a natural extension to Batman 66.
It kind of is. I just keep thinking like that's another good example of tone. Like, you're going from something very dark to something very just lighthearted and really good. Sorry for that tangent. I just thought about that. And Batman the Brave and the Bold is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's an interesting reboot idea. Let's take Harry Potter and let's make that 8-season, 7-season miniseries. 10 episodes a season. Retell the books, but from somewhere between 10 to 14 episodes each.
You have my money.
Yeah. So this is the one where it's like the time's removed, the popularity's still there, and it's like you're not rushing. You're not like forcing things into 2.5 hours anymore. You can stretch things out. You can give things weight. You can give things time to develop and emotions to arise. You can build up characters in a way that the films could never really do Ron, for example, Luna, for example, Neville, for example. Neville is bumbling, and then in like the last movie, he's like, I can be a hero, things
Right.
like that.
And you just have J.K. Rowling come in and fully expand on the characters that she never had a chance to expand on, right, Ariel?
No. So you take J.K.
Because she hasn't been doing that.
You take J.K. Rowling and you lock her in a room and you say, you're not allowed. We're using the text and only the text. We're not using your stupid, like, addendums and appendixes and stuff, okay? We're not doing that. She has done a disservice to her own product. Some people just don't know when to quit.
Right. This is something that is ripe for HBO Max whenever that streaming service comes out. Warner Brothers has the Harry Potter rights. They can just do that. I think Netflix proved this concept would work with a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah, I was never a fan, but yeah, that's a good point. This is something that I think it should have done, especially after that second movie, like we mentioned. Like, that book is way too long to condense into even a 3-hour movie.
Yeah, even 2 3-hour movies.
Yeah, totally agree there. What else do you have on your things that like maybe something ripe for a reboot?
Okay, here's my big one. Beetleborgs. Bring Beetleborgs back.
I like the idea, mostly because I'm a Beetleborgs fan, or I was a Beetleborgs fan growing up. I love the toys. The designs are awesome. I don't know if the interest is there.
I mean, probably not.
Okay,
let's be honest.
Okay,
I know that Beetleborgs are. People go, what? You mean store brand Power Rangers?
How dare they?
Right.
Let's.
I just figured I'd put that out into the universe.
Let's do a Beetleborgs / VR Troopers, like a mix mashup.
Oh man, please.
Okay, here's a reboot idea, and one that I think should be done, and if done correctly with someone who knows what they're doing, not one of the old white guy in a room with a rich friend reboots, the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I just,
okay.
I think conceptually it really works. I think people want to build tent poles. I think it's an existing property that's ripe for a tent pole and multiple cinematic universes. As long as you take the time and use some good source material and get good writers like Marvel's done, I think you can make it work.
Okay. I definitely agree with that. And I've got another reboot idea that we're rebooting a property that was already created and was kind of messed up. But I think Once Upon a Time should be rebooted as the Fables TV show it was always supposed to be.
Fables is, so for those you don't know, this comic book creator, Bill, I think Williamson is his name.
Willingham.
Was it Willingham? Willingham?
I think so. Great. Now you got me.
Bill Willingham was approached by a network, I think ABC, to create a TV show based off of his like best-selling comic book Fables. Fables is a Vertigo line comic, so a DC Comics offshoot. Right? Fables is a comic book where the historical fairy tale creations were kicked out of their homeland and brought into the real world, into the modern day, by this force called the Adversary, by this antagonist called the Adversary. And it follows the adventures of Snow White, who is playing, what is her role in the town? Andy, do you remember?
Mayor.
No, she's not the mayor. King Cole is the mayor.
Okay. Yeah, she's like the mayor's assistant then, isn't she?
Yeah, she's basically, Snow White runs the town, and this guy named Big B is the sheriff, and Big B is Big B Wolf, as in Big Bad Wolf. And it's this awesome, gritty, violent, occasionally sex-filled version of like the fables trying to exist in the modern world. And what ABC did was say, they told the producers, like, hey, we don't need Willingham. These are all public domain. And now Disney owns us, so we can just create our own version, our own idea of this. And that became Once Upon a Time. And they kicked Bill Willingham out of that project and really screwed him over due to it.
Right. And Once Upon a Time was fun for a little bit, but Fables is a great story, and I just would love to see Fables really flourish.
Yeah, the characters are awesome. I think Bigby Wolf is like one of my favorite comic book characters.
Yeah, which, funnily enough, that's like the one character they didn't do for Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, it's really...
They did the Huntsman, but he's gone pretty quickly. He had to go film the 50 Shades of Grey movies.
Yeah. I don't know if it'll ever be done, but it's one of those ideas that's just like... And I think you can get people on board because it's like, man, this is just Once Upon a Time reboot. It's like, no, this is what Once Upon a Time stole from comic book creator Bill Willingham.
Yeah, exactly. That I think that's one of the things that should definitely be on Hollywood's block at some point.
Yeah, I totally agree. What else do you have in mind for a reboot?
Okay, Pushing Daisies. People who do not know, Pushing Daisies was an amazing short-lived comedy series by Brian Fuller that is just magic and ethereal and so beautiful and funny.
And lovely and joyful and...
Yeah, and I just want more of that. I don't care if it's a reunion. I just want that tone to be rebooted, I guess.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's hard to define what Pushing Daisies, like, it's hard to define what made it so special. Starring Lee Pace in the lead and Kristen Chenoweth as one of the supporting actors. But it was just so... It was so charming, and it was so joyful. It was so silly and ridiculous, and you could never quite figure out where each episode was going to go, and you would never quite figure out where like the overall narrative was going to go, and we never found out because it got canceled after 2 seasons. But yeah, that's a great one. I don't quite know what will happen.
I'm also watching Pushing Daisies right now.
Okay.
I just recently finished the 2nd season, so I'm in this like post watch, drought, like where I just miss it.
Yeah.
Also, breaking news: I have a former co-host, Michael Chen's reaction to Battlestar Galactica news, because Mike is a fan of Battlestar Galactica.
Yes, he's on the other side, I think, of you, Andy.
Okay. Yep. His reaction is shrug emoji.
Mike's not about it anymore, man. He doesn't have to be on the pod. He's not about it.
Okay. This is his full reaction, but he did put the shrug emoji in. The series ended in a way that I'm not sure we need this ... at all. It was lightning in a bottle in so many ways. Also, paywall. I am happy to not watch Star Trek, and as much as I love BSG, I'm good. Not enough hours in the day to pay more than 2 corporate overlords.
Yeah, Mike's not about the paywalls. I do worry about Battlestar being lightning in a bottle. I think Firefly, another candidate for our reboot conversation. I think Firefly falls into the same problem where I don't think there's a combination of actors, including the original cast, that can recreate the charm that we had in the early 2000s with Firefly.
Well, and even Nathan Fillion is very open about being like, look, guys, I'm old. Have you seen me? I can't do that anymore.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Is that in another very similar world, Tom Holland is not Nathan Drake. He's Mal. He's Mal Reynolds.
Yeah.
Man, that's a much better idea.
Yeah. I have heard that Sci-Fi did try to do something very Firefly-esque recently. A show that's ending in a couple days called Killjoys, which is a 5-season show about a trio of bounty hunters that go through a violent class war on multiple planets.
Yeah.
So it went on for 5 seasons, but I also just heard about it. So
yeah, I haven't heard about it at all. So I heard about it just now. Yeah. Let's wrap this up. Are there any other quick hits for things to potentially reboot?
Yeah. Carnival. HBO's Carnivale.
Okay. Explain what that is in a sentence or two.
Okay. It's a traveling carnival and things are weird, but it's during the Dust Bowl. It's kind of like X-Men, like, you know, where the individuals in the carnival have weird powers and they kind of have to be together to survive in this world. So basically kind of do an X-Men show.
Okay. Here's my counterpoint, but also supportive point to both Carnival and X-Men and NBC. Reboot Heroes. I think Heroes is the perfect show because
which also had a carnival.
right, exactly. That's what made me think of it. Heroes is incredibly simple conceptually. It had a very, very good first season and was victim to the writer's strike. So really, in execution, it ended up being much poorer than we thought it would be in the long run. And it's beloved, you know, in terms of memory. And so it's like it's like the perfect thing to reboot where and in today's climate, we know this can work. Like the movies tell us, the comic books tell us, the TV shows tell us this can work. This is something I would like pay NBC for. I won't pay NBC streaming service for Battlestar or Parks and Rec or Friends or The Office. I just don't care for older things that, like, you know what, I can ready to move on. But if you give me like a reboot of Heroes and you're telling me that I don't know, somebody well versed, if the Russo brothers are actually sitting down and show running this thing, then like I will be on board for it.
Yeah. Oh man. You know, Brian Fuller, he did his work on Heroes.
Yeah.
And he left to go do Pushing Daisies. So man. Yeah, there's so many things that can be rebooted or even just gone back and continued. Like another Brian Fuller favorite is Hannibal. We can finally do Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. I got off the Hannibal train in the middle of season 2. Because there were a couple of characters I just couldn't, like, I really hated. But yeah. So much of that is so good.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just tons of things that could be rebooted, and I would love to see rebooted. And it's fun to go through these little thought experiments, right? Yeah.
Give me a Hobbit reboot. If someone wants to do it and someone wants to put the time and care.
You mean a reboot of the old animated movie?
Oh yeah, the old animated.
What would they reboot?
Oh yeah, right. Things don't exist. Yeah. Yeah. So if you, dear listener, have an idea of what you feel is ripe for reboot, ready to reboot, you can let us know. This is a conversation that can last forever and ever and ever because there's so many good ideas out there that are just bought up by people who just don't care about the idea and they only care about making money. And as somebody who I would probably label myself as a creator, I would definitely label myself as a creator in some way, shape, or form. That's frustrating to me to have something like Heroes, to have something like Pushing Daisies, and like we just can't get that in the form that it really needs to be. And maybe rebooting some of these things, we can get that.
Yeah. Oh man, I just thought of something. All right, Ariel, I'm going to push this to you.
Okay.
take that old cartoon, Static Shock, reboot it, except the main character is much older and used to be an Olympic athlete. All right, make it live action,
Okay.
and let's just go ahead and call it Black Lightning.
Just reboot Black Lightning. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
No, God, Black Lightning is really good.
It's good or bad?
It's good.
Okay.
It's good.
I watched those first 2 episodes and I never went back.
Man, yeah, it's really good. Heck, let's just reboot America. Let's reboot capitalism.
Maybe, man. No, I don't think we need to reboot capitalism. I'm all about rebooting America, so that more of the people who originally lived here are still alive.
Oh.
Fun fact: Native Americans are still proportionately like the most violently attacked people in America, because there's just so few of them because America is so terrible, but they are still attacked at a much higher proportion than any other ethnic group in the country. So interesting tidbit there.
Here come the reviews calling us cucks.
God, I don't care. Like, it's one of those things, like, you want to label me a certain way, you want to label a show a certain way, by all means. I don't. If you feel that what I've just said there is offensive or spews one way politically, by all means, I don't want you to listen. In fact, shut us off and, do whatever.
But give us 5 stars.
But give us 5 stars. Complain, curse us out, but still give us the 5 stars. Thanks. I'm curious as to when things like the Defenders shows are going to be rebooted. I know that they will be. I'm certain. I just don't know when.
Yeah. They have to be, especially if it goes with my idea that Disney Plus is using these superhero shows to act as the origin stories for their movies, so they know what movies to make.
Right.
Oh man. Well, we could reboot Daredevil, but keep Wilson Fisk, or keep Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin.
It sucks because tonally, I don't want them to change anything.
Yeah, I would have Daredevil as they did it. Like, I would reboot it, pretend that none of this other seasons happened, and just let it go on from there. Like, keep the cast.
Right.
Okay, we should wrap this up.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any ideas for reboots, you can hit us up on social media at Geek101 Podcast on Twitter and Facebook, or email us geek101pod@gmail.com. But before we do our sign off, or I repeat all that good stuff, Andy, do you have homework for the listeners today?
Yes. I started watching a wonderful anime series that anime fans are going to already know, but it's Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. It's on Hulu. Give it a watch. If you like anime, if you've been kind of craving something that's a little Inuyasha-ish, a little Rurouni Kenshin-ish, give it a watch. It's fun.
Yeah. I'm not really a big Inuyasha fan.
It's only Inuyasha-ish in its setting. Demons with lots of different powers, and it's in the 1915s.
Okay, tonally it's more Kenshin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, tonally it's more Kenshin, or maybe even like a Hunter x Hunter. It's a bit of a shonen, battle anime, but it runs pretty quickly, and the animation, there's something added to the manga source material in the process of animating the fights. I'll put it that way.
Great. Yeah. That's always something to keep an eye out, because I feel that most anime on the whole is like a net negative to the manga. Because it's maybe not net negative. That's probably too harsh. 99% of the time I will read the manga instead of watch the anime, because the anime is just the pacing. The pacing is all wrong on anime comparatively to the manga. And it's because they want to follow the strict model of an episode per chapter. And sometimes for something, especially like Bleach and Naruto, there's just not enough in a chapter to sustain 23 minutes. Dragon Ball Z is the king of this, right? That's why the jokes are there, because there's just not enough. One Piece is, I think, the exemption, and that's my homework for this week is to catch up on One Piece, because my goodness, Eiichiro Oda, who is the creator of One Piece, I think has crafted the most intense and layered and ambitious world I've ever seen done by one person. Like, I don't feel like there's too many qualifiers in there, right, Andy?
No. He's been doing it for like 22 years now.
Yeah, I think it's 22 years. And so, an arc, a mini arc in an overarching arc has just ended. And so, like, now's a good time to catch up as, like, a new arc is starting. But One Piece is not for your traditional, like, Dragon Ball Z shonen fan. I can certainly find somebody growing into it, but there's just, like, the world building is on par with something like the DC universe. Like, that's how crazy this world building is. And there are times where you're feeling that the manga is going into a lull, and it's because he's just laying the groundwork. And then as soon as you sense that he's building toward, or as soon as you figure out what he's building towards, like, you have this excitement to reread it, because the man is, in my estimation, like, the most genius comic book creator I've ever seen this side of Jack Kirby. And, like, it's crazy. Like, there's nobody else I can put him on par with. Like, to me, he's greater than, like, Jim Lee. He's greater than, like, Alex Ross. Those guys are artists, right? Kirby is the guy who, like, created these awesome worlds and drew these insane double page spreads with intricate drawings and characters, and while people, like, reading up on, like, for example, New Gods might not have figured out exactly what Kirby was saying in the time he was saying it, they look back and realize, like, man, this guy is just way ahead of his time. And I think that's Eiichiro Oda right now. I think in 20 years, this is a bad example, in 50 years when One Piece is done, and people have had time to reflect on it, they'll look back and be like, man, this guy was 50 steps above what everybody else says. And in 100 years, right, or in 75 years, when people are looking back at One Piece, they're going to say, nobody was better than this guy. I think that's the kind of level we're working at with One Piece.
Right. And just to let our listeners know where you can actually find One Piece as far as a comic book to read, Shonen Jump's app gives you access $2 a month. That's it. $2 a month gives you access to their entire digital catalog with things like, there's so much, but Naruto and Bleach, Dragon Ball Z,
One
Dragon
Punch
Ball
Man.
Super. Yeah, One Punch Man. All these things, and they keep going back and adding anything that's not already digitized. They're very open about what they're doing, but you also get the last 3 chapters of any manga or whatever. You get it for free. So every week they release a new chapter for free. It's great. It helps them out. It's supporting the everything, but you also get something very unique. And Ariel, I told Ariel about this. They're doing One Piece covers. Ariel, can you break that down what that was, that chapter?
Oh, so the Doctor Stone creator. I'm gonna try to find his name right now. The his name is Riichiro Inagaki. He is the creator of he's a writer and illustrator of.
Okay, guys, editor's note here. Ariel looked up the author for Dr. Stone, but it is the artist for Dr. Stone, Boichi, who did this chapter. So every time you hear him reference the author of Dr. Stone, he means Boichi. Thanks.
A manga called Dr. Stone, which has plenty of good reviews.
It's really good.
Right. He, with permission from Shonen and Oda and all these great things, he redrew an entire chapter of One Piece in his style. And it's not just like, it's funny because like you think it's in his style, he like redid everything. No, he literally like redid the framing. Like he copied the framing too, which is actually like a practice among up and coming artists to like redraw things in famous framing so that you can get a sense of like how good framing works. But he basically redrew an entire chapter featuring One Piece's character Mihawk, who is the greatest swordsman in the world, and the One Piece crew's first mate Roanoa Zoro. And it's just like this beautiful like it's like some of the angles are slightly different, but it's just this beautiful retelling of a very, very important chapter in the One Piece canon. And it came at like such the perfect time as you're kind of gearing up for Zoro's character arc to come along. It was such a brilliant idea and like so well executed, and unlike anything I've ever seen done in comic book form.
Right. And they are saying that there are more on the way. So
I'm excited. Eiichiro Oda's criticism is that he's not like in a god tier of artists. I would probably say this guy, Riichiro Inagaki, is a better artist. I would say Yusuke Murata, who does the One Punch Man like redraws, who's currently doing the Shonen like One Punch Man stuff. I would say he's one of the best artists I've ever seen. So like, but Oda's world building is insane, and so I think like this is a brilliant idea.
So yeah, definitely check it out, the app, and this is free if you don't want to fork over the $2 a month. This chapter is free. It's so cool. I love this idea, and if you are a manga nerd like me, it's just great.
Yeah. The Shonen Jump deal, the $2 a month, is the best subscription like deal in like out there. If you're a fan of manga, like there's no excuse. Go get it. All right, so that's my homework to catch up on One Piece. That was a nice long 10-minute spiel by Andy and I. But I can't recommend it enough.
And write a review and call us weebs.
Yeah, please. This is funny because like I don't watch anime anymore. I rarely read manga that's not One Punch Man or One Piece. Funnily enough, they have the same first word there. But it's just One Piece is unparalleled, and I don't use that word lightly. So that is our long spiel of homework. One Piece will never be rebooted officially because like nobody has the time or energy to do that. But I would like to see like maybe like a Naruto or Bleach one reboot. That'd be interesting.
Well, like a Dragon Ball Kai maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
Like where you do the anime, but you take out all the filler,
right,
and just condense it to its source material without the restrictions of publication dates.
I think a remixing of Hunter x Hunter would actually be really good because Hunter x Hunter is a mess, and I feel bad because the creator's sick. But that's like a really cool concept with really cool ideas that could be remixed or reimagined rather. Nope. Retold. That's the one. Retold, where like you kind of retell this thing and maybe take it in a different direction or two. But that's something that could be done there.
All right. Other than that, guys, please remember, I want your top 10 scary movies. Some way, shape, or form, get them to me. I promise we'll tally them up. We will make the official Geek 101 scary movie list.
Yeah. Andy, before we finally sign off and get out of here, where can people find you online?
You can find me online on Twitter at HebrewsPaleAle, and you can also email me at HebrewsPaleAle@gmail.com.
Right, you can find me at Dread Pirate Ride. You can find us at Geek101 Podcast on Twitter and Facebook and Patreon. Email us geek101pod@gmail.com. That's all we have for today. Class dismissed.
Okay, guys, editor's note here. Ariel looked up the author for Dr. Stone, but it is the artist for Dr. Stone, Boichi, who did this chapter. So every time you hear him reference the author of Dr. Stone, he means Boichi. Thanks.